Brian kneeled at his mother's grave and wept inconsolably. In his tears, he repeated, "Forgive me, Mother. I know I am to blame. I hope you will forgive me, if only I knew." People were walking by and saw the young man weeping and asking for forgiveness at the grave, but no one said anything. It's quite common to see a person crying in a cemetery. Suddenly, a little girl approached him. Little did he know what would result from that little encounter. "Hi, why are you crying and asking for forgiveness? Did you do something wrong?" the little girl asked. "It was my mother, and yes, I did a bad thing. I left her to die alone. But who are you?" "My name's Anastasia." Brian was surprised that a strange girl approached him and started talking calmly. He was even more surprised at how relieved he was with the little girl. What a beautiful name. As he rose to his feet, Brian said to the girl, "Where are you from, little girl? What are you doing in such a sad place?" "I live nearby and come here every morning to find some money for food." "Food money? But you're just a little girl." "Yes, I'm a little girl, but I have to get money for food. I like cemeteries because people here are usually very friendly to me, and that way I can get money." The man was amazed that such a little girl had to beg for money to eat. "Today, you don't have to beg for money anymore. I'll give you anything you want," he said, and he took the girl to the store to buy her food and sweets. Little Anastasia was thrilled. Although strangers often gave her money, she had never been taken to a store. "Thank you very much for all these groceries. I assure you they will come in handy," said the girl. "All right, little one, don't worry. But how will you get all these packages home? Let me take you." Anastasia accepted the offer from the noble stranger, loaded all her purchases into the car, and showed him where to go. They drove to an abandoned house where an older woman met them. "You're early. And who's this man?" she asked. "Good afternoon. My name's Brian. I helped Anastasia get enough food to last her for the next week." "A week? This girl's greedy. She'll eat it all up in a couple of days." "How can you be so ungrateful as to say that? And how can you send a little girl to beg when you can do something yourself?" The man was indignant. "Me? I'm taking care of her. Do I have to look for food as well? No, life is never easy. Let her learn to take care of herself on the street." "While you eat what she's got? Wow." The conversation was getting tense when Anastasia interjected, "Please stop arguing." "Okay, baby girl. I'll come over later to give you more food," Brian said. Brian was a very well-to-do man who had no problem helping those in need. But this little girl touched his heart. He did not understand why such a little girl had to fetch food from the streets. He was so surprised by what had happened that he even started to think about adopting the girl and giving her a better life. The thought did not leave his mind. After this happened, he began to visit Anastasia frequently. He went to her house every week and brought her bags full of groceries so she no longer had to beg on the street. One day, Anastasia asked why he was begging on her mother's grave that day, and Brian told her his story. It turned out that the man had not always been a millionaire. He lived with his mother, who cared for him alone. But when he turned 18, his father, whom Brian had never seen before, suddenly appeared. The man apologized to his son for abandoning him as a child and offered to go with him, travel the world, and earn money. His mother didn't like the idea. "You want to take my son away from me," she repeated to her ex-husband. But Brian agreed and went traveling with his father. During this time, the young man learned a lot from his father and became a successful businessman. He made a lot of money, but completely forgot about the one who gave him life and cared for him as a child. But when he returned home, it turned out his mother had already died. That's why he asked for forgiveness at her grave. The girl was disappointed, but tried to support the man anyway. "I didn't know my father either," she said, making Brian even more heartbroken. "I know I should have taken care of my mother. It was my mistake and I regret it. But I will never leave anyone who needs me again, I swear," Brian said. This conversation got him thinking about adopting little Anastasia. He had abandoned his mother when she particularly needed him, and he didn't want that to happen again. He knew he would not forgive himself if something happened to the girl, and he could not help her. When Brian talked to Anastasia about it, she happily agreed. She was finally happy to have a father. The older woman didn't mind either. She didn't seem to care, as it turned out she was a cousin of Anastasia's dead mother. She took the baby out of pity, but she quickly became bored with her and no longer knew how to get rid of her. Brian very promptly arranged all the necessary documents to adopt Anastasia. Now, the girl finally had a loving father who could care for her. With Brian, Anastasia began to eat normally and could travel, study, and live a full life. Soon, Brian met a girl he fell in love with at first sight. They got married, and the three of them lived happily ever after. Little Anastasia was very grateful to Brian for adopting her, and the man was sure his mother would be delighted with her son. That encounter at the cemetery had taught him a lot. Everything that happens in life has a purpose. If he had not cried at his mother's grave, he would not have met Anastasia, and then the girl would still be starving and begging in the streets, living with an aunt who did not even love her. Now, the girl is happy. She goes to school and eats as many sweets as she wants. But most importantly, she now has a family that loves her and ensures she's doing well. Brian has a more straightforward attitude toward life. He's learned that money's not the most important thing, and that it is much more important to love and be loved by the people closest to you and never forget about them, no matter what happens in your life. Thank you for reaching the end of the video. To watch more stories, click on the playlist to the right. Until next time, stay safe.